We are rolling into October with another Off the Record on the Rocks with my good friend, Mr. Ancarino Lara. We got a lot to get to. The government is still shut down. Swiftie has put out a new album. Bitcoin reaching all-time highs. The New York Stock Exchange placing bets on Polymarket, which we've been covering here forever. And AI, Sora, AI, breaking the internet. And it's these video generation platforms aren't new, but this one somehow feels like the consumer product that pushes it over into the mainstream. What's your take? How's it going on the West Coast?
I mean, the West Coast, on the best coast, I'm just kidding. I'll tell you, October started early this year. Usually that harvest full moon comes in September. For whatever reason, because of the very early full moon, I guess the beginning of this year, it put the harvest moon at the beginning of October, the same day, Bitcoin all-time high. I even found a research paper. Someone took the time to go back and research the prices of Bitcoin and the prices of stocks in the stock market during full moons and during new moons, and demonstrate that if you just for the last 10 years, without any emotion, followed the pattern of buying and selling on those lunar cycles, you'd be up like 68% or something ridiculous. So things are great. Look, I bought a bag when it was 112, 113, thinking that's outrageous. It's too expensive. And now it's 126. I mean, 10% gains in a week. It's a heady time. It feels like the celestial bodies are all moving the right direction, even though the United States might not be.
Grab a drink. It's time for another episode of Off the Record on the Rocks. Join Michael Toner and Ancarino Lara as we discuss the latest in all things Web3, AI, metaverse, and crypto. Tune out the noise and turn up the signal as we pour ourselves into the future. Better make mine a double.
Even though the United States might not be.
I feel like we talk a lot about all of these events, the sort of, the conflating of all of these things, the swirling of all these activities I rattle off at the beginning, and we point to the heavens in the moons in such a way that I think it is important to recognize, for example, September 30th, the end of the government fiscal year is on the calendar. Every year, this has happened on September 30th. It's a bit of a dark time. People are unsure, uncertain, uneasy. It's weird. People don't know if they're going to get paid, if TSA agents are going to be able to screen me. Can I travel? What's open? All of those questions start surrounding. And that's maybe my Taylor Swift moment there of, if you needed a moment to really stick it to the people who are controlling the narrative, who are putting the red lines in the sand with Gaza and Palestine on Sunday night, the night before the full super harvest moon, the energy shifts. Some of it is known to us. We know it's going to be a full super moon. We know the government is going to shut down. In this case, we knew Taylor Swift's album came out at midnight. I feel like there are purposeful piling in at that exact moment because it is the right time to finish the year strong as we head into the start of Q4. It's the last push before Christmas, before the new year, before we head into 2026. The fix is in. We talk about this too. Anything that's going to happen before Martin Luther King Day, anything that's going to happen, the deal that gets struck here now in October is what impacts next year and the markets of 2026. So it is a lot happening. I think I want to zero in on the Sora and AI right now of the valuation with OpenAI. We've been covering the Bs, the sheer Bs and billions that OpenAI has raised, and now surpassing SpaceX in terms of its overall valuation. So it is now more valuable to own artificial intelligence here on Earth than it is to send a rocket to Mars.
Which is sort of a really great juxtaposition as you're saying it, right? Because like we're talking about looking to the heavens at a time when things that are on the terrestrial Earth are seem like they couldn't be in more shambles. The guy, the head of NASA, or some commenter on NASA, maybe it was Bill Nye, the science guy, science guy, talking about like, how are we going to, what are we doing if we're not looking up? If we're just looking forward, what have we become? Is there a de-evolution that's happening? Sort of he's suggesting as we start to defund these federal agencies, and are we no longer looking to the stars? Well, the government's answer probably is, well, we don't need to look to the stars because we have this guy over here named Mr. Musk, and he's going to go ahead and deal with all that stuff. But now the bloom is even off that, because Sammy Altman, former partner of Elon Musk, is like, well, hey, SpaceX, that used to be so valuable and so interesting, but it doesn't seem like it anymore, because look at this company called OpenAI. This company that steers really, I think there's a Swiftie parallel there in terms of pop culture and youth behavior as an antidote of some form or another for perhaps just this morass of Gen Z and older people making poor decisions for our country and for our world. So Swiftie comes out with an album to take the burn and the edge off of all that's really happening in the real world. That's its own sort of musical metaverse. And then OpenAI says, well, we already know everyone's face because everyone has this great face technology on their phones. We use it to open and unlock our phones and open our bank and everything else. We all know people love spending time in social media apps like TikTok. We're just going to bring those two things together. We're going to make it so you can see a TikTok, but then put you in it by remixing. That notion of remixing reality to create, the new numbness, the new way to just deal with the fact that no adults seem to want to deal with responsibility anymore in any hallways of our government.
The new numbness is the meme maker, right? The memes are what then create the numbness. And if from a single piece of content, I can remix it into eternity.
Derivatives.
I can create derivatives of the meme itself. I can put myself in the meme. This was the craziest thing to me when I signed up for Sora 2. The first onboarding is the face scan. So just like when you open up your phone, and as part of that onboarding process, there is the look up, look left, look right, facial scan happening. That exact behavior was the exact onboarding process inside of Sora. It makes you say a few numbers in order to get the vocal inflection and can complete the mouth tracking. So now Sora has effectively your name, image, and likeness stored in its database. And the next thing that it surprised me were the toggles for who can use this. You scan your face, and the very next question that the onboarding asks you is, who can use this? By default, it was checked as only me. There was an option there for friends, for mutuals. I'm assuming mutual friends, like friends of friends, or everyone on the internet. There were a couple of other directions that you could give Sora of like how to represent you, or even further, how others can represent you. And we have talked about this on the show when we talk about augmented reality, when we talk about identity and avatars and the metaverse. But here it is. It's your face in the metaverse. You are your own avatar now. The avatar within can be infinitely remixed and derivatives created.
You are your own derivative. So we talked about this in the context of what is the ownership of the NIL, and we hear and see, everyone knows what NIL is because of sports, right? You have athletes, they own their name, their image, their likeness. They can get paid for video games. They can get paid for future iterations, which we're in right now. Future is now when it comes to that. And the idea is, well, if I have my NFT, if I have my token, if I have my beacon, if I have my RFID that says when you put on your Meta glasses, and then we go walking outside, because in this future world, we all just wear plain white clothes that are like, unremarkable, because as you look at me through the glasses, how do you see me? And now what we're realizing is, and what OpenAI has just put out there is, you can make it so that everyone sees you exactly the way that you want them to see you. I'm in my Gucci tracksuit. I got my hat on and my special glasses, and that's how I look across the boards. And what you just said too is really important, because the consumer element is what we're talking about now: protection, privacy. I was pleasantly surprised that OpenAI steered hard into what I would consider an Apple version of privacy and ownership. That felt very on brand with the partnership that ChatGPT has had with Apple, right? There was a huge announcement. We'll get to the conference. We haven't talked about the conference yet for developers, but that original announcement, ChatGPT and Apple. Okay, well, Sora is ChatGPT, right? It's the same account you're logging into. It knows all of your history. So when I go in there to prompt, I can ask for threads from previous conversations and reference content that I don't have to put in the prompt, because it knows my history with ChatGPT. But then, okay, that's you and me, and that's nice. But now let's say you're the influencer, right? You're Taylor Swift. Now, she wouldn't do this, but let's say you're an influencer who's not Taylor Swift, who signs up and says, anybody can use my likeness. In fact, I want them to as much as possible. That's how I gain influence. But you can only do it if you make me dress like, a K-pop demon hunter. Like, that's my rules. Right. Purple hair and a big sword. And that's how I will now be. And then a month will go by. I just go into my settings and say, okay, it's winter. Now I always want to be in my knit cap and my little mittens and with a cup of coffee. And then summer will come and I want to look at my beach best. Look at my beach best outfit, Michael. I've been working out.
And that's the only way I should be represented.
That's the only way.
Anyone else chooses to create a derivative of me, they must follow these rules.
Exactly. And when that becomes the standard, whatever they call the NIL standard, and that can then be taken out of Sora, out of OpenAI, and brought to other places. Like, is there an NFT version of your look on Sora that can be exported, so that finally when Facebook and Meta say, okay, we'll do an integration with Sam Altman's APIs from Developer Conference, and it will go into Spotify, and it will go into, to Facebook, it'll go into Threads. Well, now I am completely consistent across everything. This is something we did at our company with an engagement channel on a web screen. Make a Coca-Cola experience once, put it in every social network, right? You want to be always on, omni-channel. This is the always on, omni-channel version of name, image, and likeness. Absolute control in your digital wallet.
According to the Wall Street Journal, unless rights holders affirmatively opt out, their characters may appear in Sora-generated clips. So you're seeing a lot of dead people. You're seeing a lot of Dr. Dre, Michael Jackson, JFK memes.
Bob Ross.
Yes, the Bob Ross one, playing video games. I've seen that one.
Or just painting trees on someone's face,
And there are, I'm looking to see which of the firms, I don't know if it was UTA, one of the talent firms, basically worried about the IP of their Hollywood talent, has explicitly opted out their represented.
Yeah, no surprise, right?
Actresses from this platform. But what I would say is, as you were saying, there are some people, those who have ownership and agency over themselves, right? I'm not beholden to a representative agency. I can now be my own agent, and I would like to benefit from derivative content.
Yeah.
Right. And so therefore I have every right to go and just say, yeah, make whatever content, as long as I get credit for it, as long as it can be tracked back to me as the original creator. Now, I think there are probably a lot of gray areas inside of what Sora is doing. To our knowledge, none of that is being stored on chain. There is not necessarily an NFT associated with, but there could be. The door now seems open to that kind of derivative market, where you could now have the derivative of your avatar show up in a video format, and you could have a derivative of a non-fungible token that is representative of a Gucci sweater that I actually own, that I can prove that anytime I am shown in a video when you create it, I must be wearing the thing I own, and I can prove I own it, and here's the key, and here's the unlock through my wallet that proves I own it.
But you're that turning on the head that I think we're hinting around at is really interesting, because what it's saying is, in this new paradigm of call it what you want, an augmented reality, an artificial intelligence version, an agent version, a digital twin. There'll be so many synonyms. Eventually one will rise to the top in common vernacular. But let's just say that Hollywood celebrities are more formal, more like historically understood as entertainers, right? There are celebrities and they have to behave by certain rules. There's a class of people, right? They produce movies for a studio. They go on set. They have an agent. They avoid paparazzi. Like, they have all these behaviors that are shared. They get into all kinds of drama and intrigue. They're in the tabloids, et cetera, et cetera. But turns out they have very little control, very little agency over their own name, image, and likeness, to the point where they're so scared that they're coming out and speaking against it. Like, literally imagine, I saw Scarlett Johansson. You see all these famous people coming out and speaking against this, as if somehow they're going to hold back this wave of AI and influence. Whereas the influencers who aren't living in Bel Air and who aren't in the new Apple movie, F1, the movie with Bradley Pitt, they can just say, oh yeah, put me in anything you want. Just make sure that I get the residual check and the NIL mark, and derivatize me all day long.
Just to put a fine tip on it, because we were talking about all these things, the reason Taylor Swift is in the chat is because she owns her masters. Mm-hmm. She owns the music. The reason that conversation even entered the narrative 24 months ago, the reason most Americans even understand or are able to talk about rights managed and IP and ownership of the original source material, the provenance of when it was created and who created it, is because of her right at the turning point, 10 years into the creator economy. And I know it's 10 years because Mr. Beast, speak about it on the flip side of this, just put out his video that he made 10 years ago, talking to himself about how he hopes he has at least 1 million subscribers. It is him from 10 years ago on YouTube trying to pump himself up to do this thing. And now it has happened. And now 10 years later, this intersection that we are talking about now of ownership over what you create, agency over how you create it, where you publish it, how it's owned, how it gets bought, sold, and transacted in the public markets, is where the creator economy, the rest of us, as you said, not the Hollywood elites, not the folks in the big budget films, in some cases in the scenario, not Taylor Swift, although she did at least make it feel democratized. Everyone should understand this, right? Everyone should know, or at least understand, what it means to own what you create. That intersection of the creator economy with owning what you create, a la Web3, is the next generation of the internet. The creator economy meets Web3.
That's exactly so well said. And part of Taylor Swift too, that is interesting from some of the conversations we've had over the start of this year, 2025, has been the notion of there's the good guys and there's the bad guys. And sometimes the good guys start good and they turn bad, and the bad guys start bad and turn good. You know, and we see this all the time play out in narrative storytelling, dramas, etc. Taylor Swift is a really great storyteller, right? We know that she's a musical storyteller, right? She's a bard, and she tells the story, which we all believe, because from her perspective, that she is the good guy, and the record label that she was with, maybe not the record industry at large, were the bad guys, and they were manipulating her to their benefit and to her detriment. So her story of climbing, the mountains of Mordor to vanquish, the evil Sauron, was one that all of us could appreciate and understand. Who is that big, scary, faceless entity of fat cats ashing cigars on little kids' heads outside their country clubs? And now this blonde Valkyrie type comes with her paladin sword and strikes them down and takes ownership, what we all want, ownership over ourself, our image, our likeness, our own freedom, something that most people on this planet can't say. And that is that optimistic, hopeful view that she sells in. And like you said, Maybe if she were at another record label or her original, they would never drop the albums when she did. They were too tied to fiscal concerns. They had too many other overlords to please. But she says, no. This is me. This is mine. And now the coinciding with the whole OpenAI announcement, effectively saying, hey, you want to sing 10 seconds of a song and put your face in it? Hey, you might be able to do that if the original creator of the song says go for it. And we're seeing now this whole door of the creator economy opening even wider. It was open to crack, but it just got kicked in big time.
I feel like if that's the light, and we're talking good versus evil, light versus dark, then we got to talk about my favorite topic, the ultimate arbiter of truth, Polymarket. Oh. And if you're in the business of knowing the truth and knowing who owns what and knowing how we're going to predict who owns what, then you want to be New York Stock Exchange parent company investing $2 billion in prediction market, Polymarket. Again, this has been my favorite punching bag for the last 6, 8, 10 months now of the comedy around how it entered the chat, which was around the election, literally Donald Trump, right. Kamala Harris. That was the first big push of can the Polymarket, can you put crypto dollars, crypto investment betting on who's going to win. Exactly. But now the fact that the New York Stock Exchange, we call them investments. It's a stock market. You're buying stock. You're buying equity in a company. But now they're putting their money in the futures of prediction and those derivatives that get created, because you can now have derivatives on derivatives of bets on bets and as many versions of that bet, as long as they can all be paid for, then the market can market.
Yeah, I've kind of likened it to, it's hard to pull a metaphor because it's gotten to a point where the layers, it's like looking into a pond and trying to see where is the surface of the water, where's what I'm looking for under it, how deep does it go? And when this New York Stock Exchange, which I think by most weights and measures we would agree is this, it's the bellwether of economies around the world, of creating a free market system, has parameters. Parameters have changed over time. The algorithms, the original AI black boxes can trade after hours per certain rule sets. Humans trade during hours, and on it goes. And when you're investing in a company, well, what are you investing? I'm investing in the future of the company to grow. I'm going to receive dividends. I'm going to have stock I can sell later that has appreciated in price. I don't like this company. I could short it. I can say I don't think it's going to fail. And you can kind of do Polymarket-like things already on the stock market, even so buying futures on whatever you want to buy. But now what we're saying is the world, the retail people like ourselves are having our own version. We're like, that's fine, but that only is stocks and bonds and securities and commodities. We actually want to do this for any kind of outcome, defining the truth of anything, from what color is Taylor's dress going to be at the Super Bowl to who is going to fall down first, onto the field in a football game, to what do you think this stock share is going to do, which then brings us to that exact point, which is you can now make stock predictions outside of the stock market. And people have been doing this, right? With Tesla,
like a derivative.
Sounds like a derivative, but now the New York Stock Exchange, and that move, why I think we are laughing about it, is it just fully validated that Polymarket is actually not only important, but maybe even more important, more real time than the actual stock market. So much so that the New York Stock Exchange has said, we believe to the tune of $2 billion that we need to be in this system all day long. And it makes me wonder, I was joking with you, but I'm not really that joking. It's like, is the tail wagging the dog? If you start piling money into Polymarket, can you influence the future outcome of the truth? It's an interesting thought experiment, but basically it's, already we're seeing if you have enough money, you can get out of jail. If you have enough money, you can basically live how you want to live on this earth and no one can stop you from doing it. You can buy an island. You can go fly around in space. You have enough money, you can do anything you want. So if I have enough money now, can I influence the future sales targets of a publicly traded company? Because when I walk into the next Tesla board meeting and someone's like, wait a second, Polymarket says that there is no way we're hitting our sales numbers. And the people in the boardroom are like, well, no, we have this great slide deck. It says we're gonna go 100% over. Like, well, I just don't know. It seems like most of the world doesn't think so. But yet, how does most of the world know? They just flooded it with money, with cryptocurrency. And if you have enough, could you therefore influence the future? It feels like the crystal ball has like a little quarter slot in it, like an old video game machine. You can just pump it full of quarters and play forever.
I am looking currently the top 2 trending Polymarkets. When will the government shutdown end?
Perfect.
There's a date range, right?
What's the range?
How many days will the government be shut down in 2025? Right now, 68% of the money is on 10 to 29 days. Right now, 22% of the money is that the government will be shut down through October 10th through the 14th. But again, even as I'm looking at this, and we talked about bets on bets on bets on bets, because I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, what about the following week? What if I want to bet on the following week? That's not in here. Well, I keep scrolling long enough. I know it's in there before or after the 15th. I mean, literally the parlays are infinite. You can create your own. You could then create your own bet and put your own money behind it and therefore create your own reality. The other ones are talking about the Fed making a rate decision hike in October. It's mind blowing to me that the New York Stock Exchange parent company ICE putting $2 billion into this crypto market. I mean,
it's a casino. Let's just call it what it is. It's a casino.
You're going to be able to bet on anything. And that to me says that there are going to be some of those things that you bet on that in a past world would have been considered securities, would have been considered, an NFT could have been considered an unregistered security, and therefore it couldn't have entered that market. And now there are going to be anything. There are no rules about whether you want to bet on its future. You can bet that there's a poly market for it, that there is a market for it. As long as there's 2 sides willing to take that bet, poly market's going to be there to take your money.
Well, and a couple of thoughts on that too, because I think where our listeners, where my head certainly goes, I think a lot of listeners as well, where does it end? Right? So there was a New York Stock Exchange. That was it. Eventually the NASDAQ arrives, right? Then eventually there's the NYSE in Japan. Eventually there's all these new exchanges. Then there's Polymarket. And now we all kind of chuckle to ourselves, oh, it's not, an official, government sanctioned thing. It's just this new crypto world. So one of the articles that caught my eye, and I sent it to you, is that what the first thing that's interesting is it says that basically anybody, you and I, or any of our listeners, could start a market, an exchange, right? We could start the off the record on the rocks market. And we could have a very slim subset of things that we care about, but that people could bet on. Some of them could be securities and real stocks. Some of them could be random things, like the way that DraftKings presents you these, pre-game things where it's like, hey, you want to do a parlay? How many threes is Bronny going to hit, Bronny James, in the first half of the preseason game against the Golden State Warriors? And if that hits, combined with some guy saving 2 pucks in a hockey game, well, you're going to hit that big 40x multiplier. Well, we're one partnership away from it being Bronny hitting threes and the Fed shutdown hitting 5 days on the poly market, right? So this headline that I saw is there was these 2 guys who look about as crooked as you can get, who started something called the Dream Exchange, creating and filing with the SEC their own new market. So this is the SEC's officials out of their Chicago office apparently came in and started doing a deep investigation because of the explicit ties of the 2 founders of the Dream Exchange to the Church of Scientology. So because the Church of Scientology isn't like the Archdiocese, it's not like the Pope is going to be approving of some kind of a religious market where you can like bet on how fast the smoke's going to go and for the new Pope, or like how many candles we're going to light in St. Peter's Cathedral. But these guys are like, well, wait a minute, Scientology is not really a church. It's more of an entity that shares church status. How about we all get together with old Tommy Cruise and create a beautiful exchange where we're going to be basically taking bets on whatever we want And because of those ties, they basically started shutting the whole thing down. But it popped to my, I'm up on the radar just because Polymarket it's not the first, it's not the last. We already know this. And how many derivatives on the idea of Polymarket can there be? How many new faces can you swap a la Sora?
Well, I've got one that is funny. As you were listing them off and the markets, I went and searched Texas Stock Exchange, and this is from yesterday. SEC approves newest national stock exchange based in Texas. Mm-hmm. The Texas Stock Exchange is expected to launch in Dallas next year as economists wait to see if Y'all Street is big enough to support the market.
Y'all Street?
I mean, talk about good versus evil. New York versus Texas. Wall Street versus Y'all Street.
That's outrageous.
It's anybody is going to be able to create a marketplace. The internet, with all of its glory, can facilitate infinite marketplaces. And now the regulation, the rules of the road are going to be such that you can stand up a marketplace for anything. And as long as it's probably in stable coins or crypto, sounds like the US regulators are going to be okay with it because they're going to have some visibility, if not complete visibility, into what's being bought and sold. Maybe not by who, but they'll know exactly who's winning which bet.
And as long as the bets, I guess, are settled and reconciled and real money moves, at least between now and the end of 2028, this current administration shows clearly no signs of wanting to slow down this juggernaut. And it's really rolling downhill fast, like the way you say that. I mean, something that I know one last topic we wanted to leave it with, going to just back to Sora for a second about derivatives on derivatives, is I was having a pretty good, spirited discussion with some folks about the original, this Tilly Norwood articles we were looking at, where you have this 100% AI generated actress, which is really what got Hollywood all crazy to start. That was a couple of weeks ago, right? She appears in these movies. They show her in sort of real time on talk shows. It's really very difficult to distinguish that she's not a real human. By the end of this decade, we've said many times, it will be indistinguishable. So Hollywood starts freaking out. Celebrity starts freaking out, real entertainers. But this new Sora cameo technology to put yourself into it is actually, in a weird way, the boon I think that the Hollywood Illuminati would want, because what they're saying is now, well, the humans are still going to be doing the influencing. Like maybe I'm skydiving, which I've never done, or maybe I'm scuba diving with a spear gun and chasing a James Bond villain and all these things that are fun and interesting, but put me into that context, the derivative of me. When you start talking about Tilly Norwood, who's 100% fabricated, will 100% fabricated equal influence in the future, or will 100% fabricated equal entertainment? So you can see how like Hollywood Illuminati are going to have to pick one of those two battlefronts, I think, to put their flag down first. They're not going to be able to fight all the theaters of war in the metaverse at the same time. And if they're super concerned about name, image, and likeness, then I think they're going to have to cede some screen time to 100% AI-generated actresses. The same way that one of the most famous Gen Z influencer of all time was Bart Simpson. And he's a cartoon. This woman's just a much more detailed cartoon for Gen Alpha.
With the ability to create many more derivatives, not to say that you couldn't draw your own Bart Simpson on a notebook and create your own graphic, but you didn't have the distribution and the marketplace that the internet and now Web3 has enabled. I think that the entire story around Tilly Norwood as an AI actress and the fear that has really now taken root inside of Hollywood, I just run back to the people who know how to tell stories, who know how to create the bards of the world, who can use AI for efficiency's sake, who can use AI for even derivatives and memes, which can have value, as long as they can maintain control and ownership, or at least some level of provenance. Even if you don't have control over what gets created, I want to be able to set some parameters for how the world sees me and how I show up in your feed if it's my name, image, and likeness.
It's just going to take a very influential Hollywood celebrity to just be the first to step forward and say, I'm in Sora. You can use my name, image, and likeness, but here are the parameters. And as soon as that becomes normalized by everyone's favorite actor and then actress, or actress and then actor, I think this whole conversation goes away. Like you say, it's the fear, the knee-jerk reactions of, this can't be, shut it all down. And as soon as you hear anyone who's over the age of 30 scream, this can't be, shut it all down, you hear the snickering of every 12-year-old who's like, I'm sorry, Grandpa.
Yeah.
We're the future. Watch what happens next.
I think it opens up, maybe final thought here, but it opens up a whole new world, which I think we've covered here, where both can be true. You can have AI generated entertainment content and derivatives, and creative, talented humans creating and distributing and entertaining, and the consumers are going to get to choose when and how they want to consume that. And there will need to be some kind of, I've talked about like a rating system, a Rotten Tomatoes of this was 55% AI and 45% human, or this was, it's the cheap AI content, that I'm subscribing to, or I want the full length human created feature film that I know took them 2 years to create, and I know the director, and I love the lead actress, and I want to watch it in a theater, and there's going to be a premium on that real life experience that the market will be able to decide if they want to pay for it or not.
Yeah, you mean you want some real handmade Italian Ferragamo loafers? Go to Milan and get them, or you want to go to Costco and get some leather shoes?
All of it can exist at the same time.
The way my sister said it probably best, where she's like, you know what, I hope that this means that Johnny Depp will be in movies forever when he's 28 years old. I'm like, you know what? You probably will. He probably will. He needs a job.
And in your cameo settings, you can set every actor to be Johnny Depp when he's 28 years old, forever and always, every time you watch any movie. I think that's where it's all leading. Let's pay attention to the heavens, keep our eyes on October. I think we'll get a couple more here. We'll keep our eyes on the government shutdown, the Fed decision, what is happening overseas. We'll all enter and stay in the chat. And it's going to be a huge sprint to Christmas, to the end of the year. And where all of this leads us, I don't know, but we're on our way up.
Well, just don't try to fly into LA anytime soon. The delays are outrageous. There's no one in the tower. Not even Johnny Depp at 28's in the tower at this point. It's so good talking to you, man.
We'll do it again. Peace.
Bye.
That's all the time we have for this episode of Off the Record, On the Rocks. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. See you next time for more news and all things crypto and Web3.